Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at the FW-189. This was released back with the first Operation Summer event back last year, and it's a surprising aircraft in a lot of ways. It's presented as a bomber, but it only gets 4 50-kilogram bombs, which you're not really going to be doing much with. At most you're going to be getting 2 tank kills or 2 pillboxes, or put a slight dent into a base. And that's not quite where this aircraft shines. Now I thought I'd take this out because it's a real joy to fly. And it's very good at something quite specific, and that's going to come up in the next clip. But this one here is generally a good example of what this aircraft does well. And the best advantage this aircraft has is its bomber spawn. And although it doesn't have the best guns, it has 2 German rifle caliber machine guns in the nose, a total of about 1,000 rounds of ammunition. It does have the advantage of being able to engage anything it wants very, very quickly. Now, if you've played low tier against the Allies, you'll know that the PBYs are notoriously difficult to take down. They've got a lot of guns, and generally the aircraft that are going to be fighting them aren't very well armoured, and they're going to get torn to shreds. But here I'm just going to show how surprising this vehicle can be. It does have the advantage as well of having 2 very, very good rear gunners, one of them in a fixed position there, but one of them can rotate 360 degrees around there. So putting a few shots into this PBY, I think the best way to tackle him is to get into his blind spot at the front and use the tail gunner to take out the pilot. There's 2 PBYs left, and I'm going to use the same tactic on both of them. Now one of them I think knows what he's doing a little bit, the other one not so much, but as you can see already, this is a very surprising aircraft. I mean, most people generally see it as a collector's item because it's a bit useless as a bomber, and no one really tries to use it as a fighter, but it can be pretty surprising. And in the right situations, it can absolutely break teams. Now here I'm going to wipe out almost all of their main bomber force, just with 2 machine guns on a bomber. Well, effectively 4 if you count tail gunners, but it makes it sound less impressive. So I'm going to sit underneath here, rake the airframe, and just go for the engine to see if I can knock it out that way, as I'm a bit further away here. So there we go, engine 1 is on fire, trying to shoot the end of the wing to create more drag, as the PBY is quite a fragile plane, and as soon as it starts tipping over, it's going to fall apart, just like that. And that pilot bailed out there, which, can't really blame him. So we're going to head over to the last one. I did think about going for the fighters, but I've taken 2 bombers down, I might as well go for the 3rd. Now, a bit more about this aircraft is that the way it controls is very strange. If you can see while I'm playing it, I use a lot of keyboard controls for turning the wings and the elevators, and it's very jittery, and it does almost come across like the flight model's a bit unfinished, but it's not really for me to say. It does seem a bit strange in terms of all the other aircraft I've flown, but it might just be the way they intended it. I'm not sure, I don't know anything about the aircraft, don't know how it's supposed to fly, but it does seem a little bit too manoeuvrable, I'd say. But either way, now this PBY at this point knows what I'm going to do. He's seen what I've done to the other PBYs, and he's slowing down while I'm underneath him and changing course. He's dipping down there so he can get his front gunner on me, but I'm not quite slow enough or quite fast enough in this sense to fight him, because he knows what he's doing. So I'm just trying to get the edge on either way and considering whether to turn back and strafe him with the guns, but he is manoeuvring his aircraft to get his guns on me, so I know he's not silly. I'm just far away enough now that I can get a generally good firing solution with my rear gunners, but with the nature of the PBY, it soaks up rifle caliber. It's got that very big pontoon airframe, and the damage doesn't go anywhere really. It's not going to change the way it flies, and it's not going to be quite good enough. So I'm just going to wait a little bit and turn back, try and get another burst into the cockpit. That's going to be the best course of action here. Just don't get the damage with these guns though, sadly. I'm using the universal belt as it does seem to do everything all around the best. The stealth doesn't really have the stopping power, and the tracers are, well, tracers. I'm just maintaining my distance here, considering my options. I thought the 109 might be able to take him out, but this guy knows what he's doing and he's going to need some help. So maintaining some distance here off to the side of the aircraft so he can't get all of his guns on me. He's doing some defensive flying here to get away from that 109, which does put me in a good position to attack him because he's going to only be able to focus on one of us at a time. So I'm just trying to get into his blind spot, and I think at the time that his tail gunner has been knocked out, but that's not quite the case. So what I'm going to do here is aim specifically for that tail gunner once he stops targeting me. Go straight right into the tail there and try and knock out that gunner. There we go. Doing some critical damage to the fuselage, but again it's not going to do too much in terms of the way the aircraft performs because it's centre mass, and all it's going to do is create drag, which is just going to slow the aircraft down, which for a PBY it's not really going to make much difference. So I'm trying to get over the arc of his guns here, have a good solution while he's just slow enough to get one last burst into the pilot to knock him out. And there we go. Third PBY killed, with an aircraft that has very little in terms of firepower, but you know what you're doing with it, it certainly does do the job. So this is where I consider this aircraft to really excel. Now it does have the benefit as well of being kind of a rare aircraft and one that a lot of people consider to be quite fragile and an easy target, so it's going to attract a lot of attention. But if you have this aircraft and want to have a bit of fun with it, what I'd say is fly straight in to the enemy fighter swarm, but maintain your altitude just enough and your speed just enough to be able to perform some defensive maneuvers and stay just above their climbing arc. Because the benefit you have as an offensive bomber like this is that the aircraft you're going to be going up against are going to be quite slow as they're in the climb, so if they do try and engage you, they're going to have maybe one good turn in them at least before they completely lose all energy and speed they have. And one, that lets you swoop in and get some kills, but it also slows them down and it stops their climb, so the fighters on your team can keep climbing and definitely get above them and definitely have more energy. So if you play this right, you wipe out the entire offensive fighter force of an enemy team. So right there is pretty much, bar one, all of the fighters on the enemy team, mainly Hurricanes and biplanes. Now, thankfully the biplanes are quite low, so they're not going to cause me much problems because the biplanes are quite light and they can pitch up for me and get a few hits. I did find this does struggle a little bit against Chaikas if you're facing Russia, so err on the side of caution with that. But with the Hurricanes, this does show just how well this works. So I'm just watching here, waiting to the last moment to make sure he commits, so I can get right above him and use the weirdly good maneuverability of this aircraft to get above his guns. So he's going to stall out, same with the Hurricane behind him and the Hurricane in front of him. And the Hurricane, as this is a 2.0 battle, these are the best fighters this team has to offer. And my aim's not very good there, it's completely my fault, I should have had him. But I do get a lovely profile shot here on this Hurricane. Try and go for the pilot again, but just don't quite do enough damage with these guns. Use a tail gunner there to get a few extra hits, but this Hurricane, he's dead. You can see his prop failing, his engine's out. And these other two Hurricanes, one's skulking back to base, the other one probably wants me dead as well. So that's two knocked out straight away at the beginning of the match. I do take a little bit too long to get out of the guns here, but this plane is just durable enough to withstand the rifle caliber fire. Let's flip over on him there, and you can see the flaps being quite delicate as well, but as long as you're careful with them, they should do you fine. Now the Hurricanes are quite rugged And you can also see a bit of a graphical bug there, his airframe seems to have completely disappeared, but even though these guns don't do a lot of damage, if you can make these fighters slow, you have plenty of time to knock them out. So he's trying in vain to have a bit of a defensive manoeuvre over there, but I knock him out quick enough. The other Hurricane goes back to base and I believe is picked off quite easily by the fighters that we have left. So I'm going to go down now and see what else I can do before this match finishes, because I've eliminated their best fighters straight away, all on my own, as a bomber. And hopefully this shows just how much fun this little fighter, well, fighter, bomber, same thing in this case, can be. It does perform quite a lot like a fighter. It's quite fragile and quite slow, but you certainly have that maneuverability, and if you're feeling lucky, you can even turn with biplane sometimes. I put a little burst into the Sunderland, trying to get one of his engines on fire, but I end up causing a general crit. Not sure exactly what I did, but not enough to take him down. A little bit of a head-on with the Fury here. Just get that engine fire. Swing around, hover over him to make sure I'm going to get the kill. It's checking around me to see that nothing's jumping on me. And he slowly descends into the field. And that's the third, very quick, very clean, very easy kill. That's pretty much everything this game has to offer. We end up tailing the Sunderland back and picking off the bombers, but it's not really very interesting to show. So hopefully this demonstrates the benefits this vehicle has. It's completely useless as a bomber. I wouldn't recommend using it like that at all. But it can be a very fun little fighter, especially if you're playing in a squad and you're playing with 3 friends who are in fighters, and you can break their formation initially and let your friends clear them up if your guns don't quite do enough damage. So there we go. Hope you enjoyed the gameplay, and I hope this showed you just how much of a surprising little monster this aircraft can be. So let's have a look at the post-battle rating screen. So, benefits of this aircraft: it does get the air spawn, which is, I think, the best thing about this aircraft. It wouldn't quite work as well if it didn't have that. And it does sit at the battle rating of 1.7, so you're generally going to see yourself in 2.0 games. Lots of biplanes, lots of slow fighters, lots of things to exploit. The downsides of it are that it is generally quite fragile, in the sense that it will rip quite easily. It has very, very weak flaps and landing gear, so landing it can be quite a pain. And if you do lose your flaps, you do lose a lot of turning ability, and they are very, very easy to rip off if you're not quite paying enough attention. So that is quite a negative if you're fighting some more of the manoeuvrable aircraft. You come up against a Spitfire, for example, or some of the Russian fighters, the Lags, the MiGs, the Chaikas. They're quite difficult to deal with. Not that you'd show with the Chaika anyway, but you get what I mean. The other things would probably be the guns. They don't quite have the stopping power necessary to cause critical hits on most planes, especially things like the Hurricanes, which are made out of canvas, so your rounds are just going to go right through. You've got to go for the engine, and you've really got to hone your aim if you want to use this plane effectively. The other negative with that is that the guns are to the side of the cockpits. They're not directly next to each other like most of the planes that are used this armament, so you're not going to have that spread focusing on a place like the pilot or the engine easily, because your rounds are going to go either side, so you're going to need to angle the plane slightly or adjust your aim. But if you practice it enough, you're going to be landing shots in no time. So an aircraft like this is really dangerous to the enemy team if used correctly. So if you have one, I recommend trying it out. It can be very, very fun and very rewarding to watch a team crumble to the might of a German light bomber. So with all those things considered, I think it's a safe bet to rate this aircraft a 8 out of 10. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed. Sorry this took so long to make. Due to the nature of my broken window, I can only really record at night time, where there's no traffic and the wind's not that bad. But as you can hear, the cars are quite annoying even this time at night. It's currently 3 in the morning. I tried very hard to stay up to do this, and sometimes sleep does elude me, so I need to get to bed. But hopefully I'm going to get a sort of schedule up soon, when I know what I'm doing a bit better with this, and I can get the editing down quickly, and I can not hate myself every time I listen to myself record for one of these. I should be making things a lot more frequently, so I do apologise for that. It's completely on me, and I do understand that I should be getting out content a lot quicker. So soon I should be doing just that. So thank you for bearing with me, and thank you very much for the support this channel's had. I've had a lot of comments, and I've gained quite a lot of subscribers as well, which is crazy. I never even thought I'd have this many so quickly. And that is down in part to my good friend Slickbee, so thank you very much for shouting me out and playing with me and getting me out there. It's very much appreciated if you're watching this. So, with all that said, I think it's a good end to the video, so thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for the next one. Goodbye.